Right. Well,
We're tired.
we're about the halfway point here. Thank everyone for joining us here. I'm Todd O'Hair with the Montana Chamber of Commerce, and this is Bridger Mahlum. And Bridger leads all of our government affairs work at the Capitol and even outside of the Capitol. We're doing this on a weekly basis. So this first part of this just is kind of part of our process here, so everyone knows, is that we record the first few minutes of this and then we'll stop recording, so that if you have questions about anything that we've covered or items that you may have heard about or rumors or to try to pick Bridger's brain on how he sees things going forward for the rest of the session, you can do that without having the concern of it being recorded. So we'll share the recorded version next week for folks that could not participate here today. So, Bridger, we are the halfway mark.
Hey, close. We're close to halfway. So this next Wednesday, March 3rd, will be halfway point transmittal date for general bills. And that's what, and I'd been teasing this out a little bit over the course of previous Capital Connection updates here, and that when you get closer to that general bill transmittal, it becomes a bottleneck of bill hearings, just out of it, especially from COVID this time. There having been some delays in bill drafting and getting some of these things introduced. There were about 200 bill hearings in the last 2 days alone. And there have been a total of around 1,100 bills overall introduced. So that's a big chunk to have in just a couple days, but the magic of the process continues, and we were able to get through all those hearings and continue to move ahead as far as business interests are concerned. So yeah, halfway's coming.
Halfway's coming. Some of those committee hearings this week, I know we're starting as early as 7 o'clock in the morning and rolling right up until the lunch hour, and then reconvening after the floor session to try to wrap it up. And so it was kind of a crush, and the Capitol was as busy this last week as I've seen it since the session started. I mean, it was a lot of people in, positioning themselves, paying attention to bills that they'd not seen before that all of a sudden cropped up here in the last week, in the rush to try to move it from one chamber to the next, or otherwise it automatically dies.
That's right.
So looking back on this last week, what were some of the big priority bills that the chamber had, and where did they end up in this process, Bridger?
Yeah, and for folks who tuned in last week when we had Senator Steve Fitzpatrick on as a special guest, we talked about these couple bills in a bit of length here when it comes to Senate Bill 251, our limiting medical expense recoveries as far as damages are concerned in lawsuits. And then Senate Bill 338, which was our trespasser liability bill for folks who own real property. And that's obviously many businesses that own their own property having to deal with how liable are you for an unwanted visitor on your property. So there are a couple updates we have on those two bills. I would certainly encourage you to go back to our video archive on YouTube. The Montana Chamber has its own YouTube channel, so you can go back and visit the video in which we talked with Senator Fitzpatrick about these bills in more depth. But just to update where they are now, Senate Bill 251, again, we're working with Senate Majority Leader Kerry Smith on that phantom damages bill. That passed out of Senate Business and Labor Committee just yesterday. And it's my understanding that will be on second reading on the floor tomorrow, which is great because that's a general bill and needs to get through before Wednesday. And then as far as Senate Bill 338 is concerned, the trespasser bill, we just had a hearing on that in Senate Judiciary this morning. Todd led the charge there on testimony, as well as several other agriculture and natural resource-based groups that expressed the desire to have some more consistency when it comes to that issue from a legal perspective. And so they actually might be taking executive on that one as we speak. I'm not sure. They have to move really quickly, especially that Senate Judiciary Committee that will be actually meeting tomorrow as well, to just get the last few Senate bills heard before they take that break.
So anything else this last week of special note, or have you kind of covered it all here?
Well, and I mean, if everybody wanted to spend an hour watching this recording, I could go through just everything we did this week and the bases we needed to cover, especially stopping anti-business bills from getting across. That really monopolized our time this last week. A lot of defense. And that was especially the case on some work comp legislation. There was a bevy of bills that we were concerned would have a negative impact on many small Montana businesses when it comes to their premiums, as well as a lot of employment law related legislation. There were 2 additional minimum wage increase bills that we rose in respectful opposition to, as well as some other concepts, including a bill that was going to quote unquote ban the box so that employers wouldn't be able to learn on the initial application whether an applicant had a criminal history. So those sort of things we were playing some defense on this week, but there were some good bills in the mix as well. Somewhat surprisingly given the timing, but also great news generally is that the business equipment tax reduction bill that originated in the House had its Senate hearing just yesterday. And so there's a lot of movement by the proponents in the governor's office to get that one across the finish line, perhaps before the halfway mark. Great hearing in there. Once again, I think we're really well on our way to seeing an additional $100,000 in tax-free business equipment, which again takes a few thousand more small businesses in Montana off that tax roll completely. So great news there. That's rolling along. We also looked at a couple other things as far as film tax credit. That program is a proven one that we found since its passage last session. We supported a bill that would at least significantly lift that aggregate cap as far as how many folks could claim the credit in a year, because we're seeing film production crews wanting to get involved in Montana, and that of course has that can really result in an explosion of economic impact based on where they're doing that filming. You think about stuff like manufacturers that are building set pieces for a film, or restaurants that are feeding all the folks that are on set. So yeah, those were a few of the highlights I'd say over the course of the week.
Next week,
well, it's going to be a short week next week as far as days are concerned. They are going to, the plan anyway, as far as the schedule is concerned, which I just carry this around every day, one day after the next. Again, Wednesday, March 3rd is day 45. That's the halfway point if they use all 90 days. And I think what we can expect going into next week is it's going to be pretty much all floor session stuff for both the House and the Senate. If you really any bill that was going to have a chance had to have had its hearing by today.
Yeah.
And with the small exception of Senate Judiciary still meeting tomorrow. But otherwise, it's going to be floor votes Monday, Tuesday, and potentially into Wednesday. But I mean, it's also just going to depend on the workload. I'm hearing that the Senate potentially could be done by the end of Monday. That's not confirmed yet, but there's some people that are motivated to get the work done and get on that deserved transmittal break that every stakeholder in this process is looking forward to, a few days of rest.
So by end of next week, we're going to see a much narrower scope on bills that are left, right? We've got some revenue bills that still can be introduced, but as far as general bills, they're going to have to survive over the course of the next 3 or 4 days in order for them to continue forward. So we're going to see a lot narrower scope going forward towards the end of next week. So I think that's our update for this week. We'll go ahead and we'll stop the recording at this point, and then we'll open it up to questions that anyone might have on issues that we covered, issues we didn't cover, rumors or thoughts of legislation that you've heard about you may have particular interest in. So